Hey everybody, welcome to another episode of Courtside with Beilinson Tennis, part of the Tennis Channel Podcast Network. As always, privileged to have with me my co-host and Hall of Famer, Steve Flink. You see him all in his suit and tie. He's been kind enough to do this before he goes back on site again. Steve, interesting first week. To me, even with Carlos losing on Thursday night, I think the tournament really uh, uh, woke up from almost, I would almost kind of say, the dead, when Ben and Francis played their five setter, then Novak at night. Before we get into some themes, you agree with that? What were your early thoughts on
You
this
know,
tournament?
yeah, I mean, there was a logical time in the tournament. It really tends to be that way when we first get the seeds meeting the seeds, and that made sense. But what was so great about that match, I'm glad you allude to it, is you think back to the four setter they played a year ago when Ben beat Tiafo and reached his first major semifinal, losing to Djokovic. That was a very good match, entertaining. We talked about it. They're one set all. There's a set point for Francis in the third set, and Ben makes an almost miraculous forehand winner and saves the tiebreak, saves the set, and wins easily in four with Francis very subdued. This match was much higher caliber. It was pulsating, that stadium, and I think the crowd was almost evenly divided. While I think Diafo felt a year ago that their sentiment seemed to be largely on Ben's side of the net. This time they were so torn, they were conflicted, and the tennis was just the feeling because of it was so physically rugged for three sets, and that Francis was so disciplined from the baseline that Ben's legs might go a bit. I could feel that coming early in the fourth. Felt like he had to get it done in four to prove to be right. But then they had a nice greeting at the net afterwards. And yes, I would agree with that. That was a really sort of a seminal moment in the tournament when they had that five setter. Not just that it went five, but it was such high caliber gripping stuff.
The speed, athleticism, and shot making from both was really a pleasure to watch.
It was. And I think that in the end, the percentages may be a little bit on Francis's side because, he measures his shot so well and he made a lot, less unforced errors, about half the number that Ben did. And Ben had to take those risks and he pulled off some spectacular winners and he attacked well, but it had everything. It really did. I mean, Ben had all he could do to forge ahead 2-1, but Tiafo was so determined and unwavering all the way through. He deserved the win, and I think the crowd just loved every minute of it.
Let me time. I forgot to timestamp this. This is Labor Day Monday at 9 a.m. Eastern in the States. So we're going to try to get this out, released, both audio only and YouTube before Jess Pegula starts her first match of the day. Just wanted to throw that out there. Before we talk about the match that followed Ben and Francis, at least on the men's side with Popper and Novak, I want to take a step back and talk about Carlos very briefly. And we've talked about this before. The Olympic schedule has messed with a lot of players' preparations, and you could make the same argument that it has not helped Novak as well. But Carlos, we saw some. He wins the French Open, he wins Wimbledon, he goes back, plays a great match against Novak, falling a little short in the finals of the gold medal match in the Olympics. He plays one tournament, Cincinnati. He's not himself. He absolutely lambasted his racket. He plays two matches here. This Carlos needs a break. He's mentally fried, and I think he needs a break, and it's going to be good for him.
Yeah, I mean, listen, he was very honest about the fact that he feels like he's not mentally anywhere near where he was. He's mentally off his game.
Yeah.
He's trying to figure it out. I like the kind of the process of self-analysis and reflection and ability to be self-critical. It's not a match that he should have lost. It's not a match if he played this guy 10 more times, I think he'd win every one of them. Yeah, he definitely needs a break. He probably won't play much over the course of the autumn. I don't expect it because he's basically he'd have to play a lot to take the number one ranking away from Sinner, which would be the only remaining incentive. I think he wants to be sure he's fresh, eager, ready to go for the start of next year to try to win the Australian Open for the first time. But Carlos was trying to talk him into talk that night. He just was way off. And in turn, Novak, I think we have to say, it's bookends in a way. Carlos was distressed that he couldn't get the gold medal in such a great match, a match that could have gone either way, but that Novak outplayed him in the two crucial tie breaks to win the match. So that was devastating to Carlos. He wanted to win it for Spain. He knows he has to wait 4 more years. He knows there are no guarantees. He knows that it took Novak until he was 37 to get that gold medal. In turn, Novak, it was such a fulfilling and emotionally rewarding win, and it was his target all year, that this was a little too soon, even with skipping Cincinnati, and coupled with the fact that his serve was way off from the first round on. He couldn't find any rhythm on serve. I think he served 42 doubles in 3 matches, a record
Wow. Yeah,
14.
he hit 14 in the loss, but a
Yeah,
culmination of
14
that. Wow.
in this match, which was his record for him. Actually, it was his record it hadn't happened since 2010. You got to go back to 2010 in a slam for him to do that. And he said it was frustrating that he just couldn't find his serve, and that at this level you've got to win free points on your serve. That coming from Djokovic was interesting because we think of him as such a workhorse on the but so great from the baseline, but it was too much for him, and you could see again Popyrin fully exploited it and won the match in 4 sets. But I'm just saying, I think the Olympics affected both of these men.
Oh, 100%.
Djokovic with the letdown
Right.
from winning, and Carlos still kind of carrying that defeat with him. So kind of
So
they
well
both,
said. Contrasting views, but both affected them
yeah,
both in different ways. Yeah. You
yeah,
know, I didn't go public with this, but I was texting a few people and I said it was almost kind of what I said if you go back a few episodes and when I talked about, hey, if Tommy Paul is going to beat Carlos at Wimbledon, this may be the time to do it just because Tommy was playing so well. He just won a tournament on grass. The same thing with Popyrin and Novak. I said, hey, if there's going to be an upset between them, Popyrin has played Novak close before. He hasn't gotten over the hump. Popyrin just wins Montreal. Novak is not the Novak of, maybe, of what he was, plus of what you just said, the Olympic hangover, winning that gold medal, being so emotional for
yeah.
Novak.
David, sorry to interrupt. I agree with all of that. I also think that normally that third round, when we talk about seeds meeting seeds, and his awareness that Popyrin had pushed him to 4 sets at the Australian Open, and he even had 3-set points to go up 2-1 in that match before Novak recovered, and then took the first set at Wimbledon before Novak won 7-6 in the 4. So I think Novak was fully aware that Popyrin was a threat, but normally that's what he would respond so well to it. And you could see again, mentally, he was off his game. Not the same way as Carlos, but you could see that he couldn't find the fire. He was strangely subdued for large stretches of that match. He started to come alive when he was 2 sets down. One for two, a couple of break points for 2-love in the 4. So, but again, that's normally when you would expect him to respond, and
Right.
he did. He knew Popyrin was dangerous, but he couldn't do anything about it the way he was playing that night.
Yeah. I guess the next theme that I want to talk about is the American men, because right now we have two in the quarters and we're trying to get a third. Tommy's got a big time challenge tonight when he plays Yannick Sinner. Tommy did not play well on Saturday against Diallo. Now Tommy made every return he could back, but I thought Tommy may have felt a little bit of the pressure of that match. He played very tentative to me. Diallo, Diallo made 70 unforced errors, so it was almost like Tommy was trying to get every single ball back. Um, Good players win not on their best days, and Tommy got through that match. I think he will let it fly tonight. He will not have the pressure that he may have felt against Diallo. He may not win the match, but I expect a higher quality from Tommy tonight when he plays Yannick Sinner.
Yeah, a very good assessment. I agree. I think he'll be inspired. He does have nothing to lose. I would say this, though. Sinner lost his first set of the tournament against Mackenzie McDonald, looked very shaky, lost it 6-2, came back strong to win that match 2-1 and 2. Beat Mickelson 4-love and 2, and then beat O'Connell 1-4 and 2. Those are his scores. He's been getting better. He's starting to peak. And I don't think he just takes anything for granted and thinks, well, Carlos is gone and Novak's gone. This is my tournament. But I think he's thinking ahead to potentially a big quarterfinal with Medvedev, which could end up being the pivotal match of the tournament. So I think he takes Tommy Paul seriously. I think he expects a very tough match. But in the end, I think if Sinner sustains the level we've seen in the last few rounds, I think he's just going to be too good. All I'm saying is, all things being equal, I think Sinner wins over Paul in four tough sets, but he wins.
So what I was going to say to that, if Tommy can get his, sink his teeth into this match and it gets close and it gets to a fourth or fifth set, that may flip to Tommy's advantage because one, he'll have the crowd, and two, Sinner will maybe start feeling some of that pressure. The challenge for Tommy is to get to that point in the match.
Yeah, I agree. I agree. But again, I feel like a couple of things have happened, that the whole controversy over the steroids and the announcement coming right after Cincinnati, and Sinner having to deal with the widespread reaction in the tennis community from some of the players, criticism, that I'm told by the members of the Italian media that he's, over the course of the first week, he started to get more comfortable with the idea that it's out there, it's done now. He had to live with it all those months. So I feel like he's getting back to the essential Sinner we saw at the end of last year and early this year. And that Sinner, this is, I guess, where you and I might have a slight difference of point of view. Going to be too good for Tommy Paul, even if Tommy gets this match to one set all, or keeps it alive long enough for 4 or 5. I'd be very impressed if Tommy could take it to 5, because I think Sinner in this form. I'm just thinking I'm expecting to see the Sinner we saw that did such great work at the end of last year, led Italy to the Davis Cup win, won the Australian at the start of this year, and was clearly playing the best of anyone. I'm looking for that Sinner again. If that Sinner doesn't show up, then I say, okay, Tommy's in there with a shot. I'm expecting the best Sinner.
Yeah, it should be a fun one to watch. All right, let's touch on the two other Americans though. Taylor Fritz, people were yesterday's match versus Casper Ruud was making me nervous because everything that I read and was talking with people, they're like, Taylor's the overwhelming favorite. I'm like, Casper Ruud can play on this stuff. I mean, he made the finals of the Slam. It was making me very nervous that everyone was so overconfident with Taylor. Good thing Taylor got through it, and I'm happy as an American that he did advance. But I was surprised at how everybody had Taylor winning that match so easily.
Yeah, I was too. I couldn't agree more with you on that. That's selling Casper Ruud short. They forget that it was only a couple of years back that he lost the final here to Carlos Alcaraz. We're talking about 2022, just 2 years ago. And he's very capable and hard. I think that Ruud, from what I can tell, he was maybe a bit fatigued and debilitated by coming back from 2-0 down in the previous round. He had a big comeback, looked a little tired the last 2 sets, and wasted some opportunities in the second set that might have put him up 2-0. And then Taylor was able to dominate from that point forward. But no, in no way. I think Taylor would be the first to tell you he didn't think that was going to be any kind of an easy win. And maybe he should only have been regarded, in my view. I actually thought Ruud might win the match. I was picking him to win the match, but I feel like Taylor was only a slight favorite, not a huge favorite. But good for him. He's his second straight quarter at a major now, and he'll be looking to do a lot better than he did against Musetti at Wimbledon.
Can he get through Sasha Zverev, Steve? I mean, what are your takes in that match?
Well, at Wimbledon he did. Zverev was a bit hurt that day. He had an injury, not a serious injury, but I think he was unable to exploit a 2-0 lead over Taylor. And all credit to Taylor for turning that match around on the center court and winning in 5. That obviously gives him some confidence, that he was able to beat Sasha there on the grass, and he'll feel like he can repeat it. I give Zverev the slight edge in this time to get to avenge it. But again, it's just slight. I feel like it's going to be that Taylor's serve may be one of the keys. We know how well Sasha is going to serve. Probably this is one of those matches that might go 5, but I just feel like this time around, Zverev is victorious, narrowly, but victorious.
The other American, Francis Tiafoe, who beat Popyrin last night in a fun, entertaining match, he plays Grigor Dimitrov. Steve, I love both these guys, Dimitrov and Tiafoe. I mean, if you told me Grigor would be playing this level the past basically 2 years, if you mentioned that 5 years ago that Grigor is still going to be at this level, the way that he's played, well, I don't know, the past 18 months, I guess I estimate, he's unbelievable right now. I mean, so well liked by fans, by his peers. And then he plays Francis Tiafoe, who just eats up this atmosphere, absolutely eats up this atmosphere in New York. I can't wait to watch that match. Does TFO get through that one?
Well, I got a friend named Mike Hart, who's a really astute tennis observer. He surprised me. He picked Tiafo. I'm leaning Grigor, but with not great confidence. But I feel like his game can be disruptive to. He's come off also a big win where he fended off Rublev. Grigor did after winning the first two sets, losing the next two. He won it in five. He's looking very fit. He's looking eager. I feel like his slice backhand is going to give Francis a lot of problems, but obviously this crowd will be euphoric. They will be the way they were with Francis last night. He knows how to play to the crowd, and I don't mean in terms of gamesmanship. I mean in just leaning on them when he needs them, and they're more than happy to provide the support. But Grigor is also a thorough professional, and I feel like again, all things being equal, I'm giving Grigor the slight edge in that match, but I expect it to be very, very close. Either tight 4 or 5 sets. But I'm picking, with some hesitation, I'm picking Grigor to beat Francis, knowing full well that Francis said after the match last night, he's going for the crown. His goal is to win this title, and he's had such a great run so far. He was spared having to play Djokovic, which didn't hurt. It was a much better deal to play Poprin, who had the slight letdown, and they'd never met before. And Francis managed to come out a triple set point down in the second set to go up 2-0. He had the cushion. He went on to win in 4. I think both guys are going out there for that match, David, fully believing they're going to win. That's what I'm intrigued by. The head-to-head thus far has favored Grigor, but obviously Francis is in great form. Looking forward to it immensely.
What a way to salvage a year. And David Witt obviously has had a big impact on that because Francis's year was terrible. He played okay at Wimbledon, but it was awful up until that point. So it's
Yeah,
great that Francis salvaged this year.
yeah, absolutely. But that was a turning point because he had Alcaraz 2-1, and they went to a 4-set tiebreak. He could well have beaten Carlos at Wimbledon, but that made him start believing it again. And then, of course, the great results over the summer, including that final. So he's come round, and he's just such a fixture at the Open now. Yeah. The semi with Carlos 2 years ago, 5 sets. Michelle Obama watching him from the president's box, and the quarters last year losing to Ben. And he's just every year he seems to be able to bring out his best at the Open. And so, but Grigor, I think Grigor knows how to deal with those circumstances. He'll just go about his business and play and be the thorough professional that he is, and he won't let the crowd get to him. But Francis will certainly allow the crowd to propel him if the opportunity is there.
Yes. All right, let's flip it over to the women's side because there's some very intriguing things we want to discuss on that side. And let's start with what was a hard match to watch yesterday if you're a Coco Gauff fan. And she knows what she needs to improve on more than anybody. So it's not, just beating someone down when they're already down. It was a difficult match to watch. To me, I've said this several times, so I apologize to those, who've heard me say this before, but for the new listeners, with Coco, and this is almost, I'm trying to say this as a compliment, and I've said this to you, Steve, and you understand what I'm trying to say. The fact that she's won a slam, she had an unbelievable summer last year. The fact that she's had the career that she's had, to me, is amazing. And I say that with the caveat of having some weaknesses, right? I don't know of elite players at really any sport that have glaring weaknesses. And this isn't a secret. Coco has a weakness. He has that forehand. And then obviously we saw the serve. Serve could be a weapon when it's working, but obviously 19 double faults yesterday. And again, putting on the coaching hat, if I'm coaching against her, I'm taking every single offensive or neutral ball and hitting to Coco's forehand. If I'm getting a defensive ball, you're just trying to survive. All right. But every offensive or neutral ball, I'm going to that forehand, and it's going to break down, especially when matches get tight. The same thing, and then you talk about the serve, 19 double faults. I thought Emma played a great match. She moves well. She's athletic. That matchup, if they play, Emma just beat her at Wimbledon, right? So second time in a row now. If they play again tomorrow or next week or next month, the matchup just isn't, it's not a good matchup for Coco. That said, Coco's very young. She will get good people around her, whether it's the existing team or other people. Maybe she has too many people in her ear, Steve. Maybe that's an issue too. But um, it was a tough, tough match to watch. And again, if you're playing her, you make Coco hit that forehand, make Coco's weakness try to beat you. And if Coco can do that, then it's too good for Coco. Your
Yeah, no,
thoughts?
good analysis, very astute analysis. Listen, not only what you mentioned about playing to that side, but also Navarro served to hit a second serve. She was happy to go to Coco's forehand, and she got a lot of coaxed a lot of errant returns. That was also painful to watch because some of those second serves were very returnable. What I'm puzzled by most, yes, the forehand has always been the Achilles heel, and it's never been. She's never really
She
gotten
can
over
loop
the.
it, Steve. Can't she just loop it and get something deep? And then
Yeah,
maybe
she
she
can.
can get a ball to use her athleticism and start crushing backhands because her backhand is unbelievable. Like, don't just start hitting looping balls and try to go deep and then can get a ball maybe in the middle of the court. She can start crushing backhands.
Well, I would think so. Somehow that doesn't seem to be something that she and Brad Gilbert have wanted to do. I don't know what the reason is. That's one way to do it, and then wait for the chance to crack a backhand. But I'm
Last
saying,
year, she did some of that in her run. Last
yeah,
year.
she did. She did. She was willing to last year. This year, not so much. But I feel like it's never been fixed. Now, I have the utmost respect for Brad Gilbert, and but he doesn't seem to want to tamper with it. And I would think they would want to tamper with it in the off. Maybe take some time off in the fall, not worry so much about her ranking, be worried about getting her back to Australia in good form. But somehow there's got to be a clinician who can help, fix that side because it's always been vulnerable. And now the second serve is more surprising, David. The double faults, the 19 doubles, they're coming in clusters. And you just wonder, and some of them were really painful because they're, into the net, feebly into the net. Others where she was going bigger, she was missing by a couple of feet. They weren't even close. So that surprised me because she had the double fault syndrome a couple of years back and seemed to have gotten over it. And then Brad Gilbert had her go to Roddick to work on the serve in the offseason. That seemed to be a boost. And now she's struggling with it again. That surprises me more because the forehand issue has never been resolved, but I thought the serve had been.
Right.
So to have two issues like that, it's amazing. Frankly, it was amazing, David, that she got it into a third set.
Oh, 100%. I thought Emma got
Navarro,
tight. She was up a set and a break, and Emma got tight. 100%. 100.
no, Emma had 4-3-30 love
Yeah.
in that second. Now, if she holds there, as she did hold at 4-3 in the third, I think the match would have been over. And so that it's to Coco's credit that she even found a way into a third set. Because when you've
100%
got
agree.
two serious crippling issues like that,
You can only
there's just
hide it so long, Steve. You can only hide it so long. And the
no, I agree.
opponents know.
And against somebody as solid as Navarro, and her mechanics and her basics are so good. Her movement is so good. She's just she really makes you beat her. So in the end, Navarro thoroughly deserved the win. And Coco, with this, I hope they will go back to the drawing board in some ways and examine this and say, okay, they're too good to be held back by
Right.
these weaknesses.
And I'm looking at the Emma Navarro's next round, her quarterfinal against Paula Badosa, and Paula has had a resurgence in her career as of late. But I'm thinking Navarro wins that match. She can get to the semi and play probably Sabalenka, who's played amazing so far.
Yeah, that'll be an interesting match. The question will be whether Badosa can overpower her, and obviously Badosa doesn't have there's nowhere for Navarro to go, no glaring weakness for her to exploit in Badosa. On the
Right.
other hand, she's got such great depth, Navarro, on her shots, and she returns so well. Her serve is good enough. I think that one will be a very close match. But you mentioned the woman that I still say is, to me, in my mind, is still the clear favorite to take the title, and that's Sabalenka, because she's showing us, by and large, with the exception of one match, by and large, we're seeing the same Sabalenka we saw at the end of Cincinnati, who on this surface at this time, in my view, is almost unbeatable.
Yeah, I would agree with that right now. Hey, when we talked about when the draw first came out and we talked about it, we looked at a potential quarterfinal between Jess Pegula and Iga Swiatek. We're one match away from that, Steve. Jess plays in a couple hours from when we're recording now. She plays a dangerous Diana Schneider who played at NC State. She's played very well in her short career. Um, Jess, again, she played the Olympics. She's had a good summer. She's probably one of the only players that the Olympics really has not messed with her preparation that bad. We again, Jess has never made the semis of a slam. She's played very well. She's going to have a tough test in Schneider, then possibly Iga in the quarters. If she makes the semis, it's not going to be an easy road. But the way Jess is playing, let's not count her out.
No, no, definitely not. She's in a really good frame of mind. I watched her beat Sophia Kenin over in Armstrong the other day, and that was a really entertaining match. And she hasn't lost a set on her way to the round of 16, nor has Schneider. So, and she mentioned that she just beaten Schneider recently, but that she feels like this is a whole different situation right now. The way Schneider, she has great respect for her. I think Pegula squeezes out that win, it maybe in a couple of tight sets, and gets and earns the right to play Iga. And there's where I think she can play a little looser. I mean, that she's got the crowd, and Iga's an overwhelming favorite, and I want to see that match. Let me put it that way. I want that match, and I feel like Pegula's got a pretty good chance to get there.
Similar frame of mind when you said play a little looser, as we said with Tommy with Sinner, right? I mean, it's the same type of mindset. Tommy versus Sinner, Jess versus Iga. Let's see if we can make that happen and see how that
Oh,
match turns out.
yeah, don't get me wrong, David. No, I'd love to see Tommy. My gut tells me him take his game to another level and be able to use the crowd as effectively and dynamically as Tiafo has,
Right.
and that would be exciting. And Tommy Paul is just a thorough, top of the line, admirable professional. So I'd like to see it. I don't think it's going to happen, but I would love to be proven wrong.
I know we need to get you out of here so you can get back on site. One other thing I do want to mention, you know, player who just is beautiful to watch. He's really, really good is Elena Rybakina. She's now withdrawn, eight tournaments this year. I think there's a lot going on that no one really knows the facts, what's going on. So I think everyone should be careful not to judge anything about that whole situation until things come out. Especially don't judge her because
No,
stay
I
tuned.
hear
Stay
you.
tuned
I
on
hear
these facts.
I think that it's just saddening to see. We've talked about her in the past and pulling out of tournaments with illness. She's had a really tough time. It's a shame because she's right in the forefront of women's tennis.
Mhm.
She's capable of winning any tournament she plays. She's great fun to watch. She carries herself well on the court. So I just hope that whatever is going on, that she can figure it out and move forward and start winning more majors because she's worthy of that status.
100%. All right, we got to get you out of here. We're gonna be in for some fun, entertaining last. What are we? Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday. 7 days. 7 days still of tennis left. It's gonna be a fun one. What do you want to hit on before you get back on site?
Well, I thought you might want to. I thought we might want to talk just very briefly at the end about our colleague who I happened to run into the other night. You want to? I'll let you lead into that.
We did. We had an all-important staff meeting at about 1 a.m. Eastern time after the Novak match, where friend of the program, David Zakoden, was able to meet up with you. We're going to see David in a couple months, the three of us on our year-end segment. So glad you guys had a chance to talk. He loved meeting you. He loved that even at 1:30 in the morning, you were breaking down matches, as you only can do, Mr. Flink. And it was a pleasure. And
Well,
I hope you enjoyed talking with David as well.
oh, listen, I did. He did a great job of that. We had a nice exchange of views and agreed mostly on what was going on, and it was great to meet him finally in person. He's a very good analyst of game, good guy, and I'm glad finally instead of on Zoom we met face to face.
100%. All right, get back out there, Steve. We can't wait for the remainder of this tournament. And we got some U.S. players, both on the men's and women's side, that are still hoping to make some serious noise. So have fun, and we'll talk soon.
Okay, thank you, David.